How's that? I didn't
That
actually sip it.
did you? I thought you were sounded like you were sipping it.
No, I actually faked it. Okay, are we ready now? Okay, ladies and
Almost.
gentlemen,
We're ready now. Ready now. Go.
are we ready now? Okay,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, it's Sunday, a day for reflection, a day for discussion, and a day for the judge over in Tallahassee to tell DeSantis what he wants to stop people from putting on ads about Amendment 2 and Amendment 3. It's the First Amendment, stupid. But we don't have that problem here. We talk, and we talk when we jump into the rotation. I mean, this election cycle has been more exhausting than most. I mean, the last one in 22 was exhausting, just even for a midterm. But the amount of misinformation just piling on and piling on and piling on is absolutely
It's
insane.
it's so bad. It's so bad. Misinformation can be like people look at misinformation. They're like, oh, this guy said it, so it must be true. And then there's the other side of things where it's like a scientist says something and they're like, ooh, I don't trust the government and I don't trust science. So this is so bad. I don't believe that the coronavirus was a real thing and vaccines didn't really stop the polio virus and the birds aren't real.
Okay, birds are not real. That is true. But I know at least 3 people who claim that coronavirus was a hoax who passed away from it. So I guess that's karma. But the fact is, you actually, absolutely, you can lie on TV. You can lie in television ads. Don't trust those gain commercials. The stuff smells like crap. Okay, I'm just saying. But the fact is, if you just want to be able to prove that to yourself, when they go ahead and they broadcast one of Trump's rallies that is lies from beginning to the end. There's like no truth in there at all. Or if there is, it's mixed in so subtly that all the people, the pod folks in the audience have no idea whether it's real or it's not. And if they hear something that contradicts it, they say, oh, what you're saying is fake news. What I'm saying is real. Project 2025 is fake. It was made up by the Democrats, all 900 pages of it. And the Heritage Foundation is actually part of the YMCA. That's why they play YMCA at all of his rallies, because they, in deference to the Heritage Foundation, who never really wrote Project 2025, and nobody knows anything about it. It's just a fake.
Well,
Except
I'm
for
going to go ahead
Allen.
and say, let them continue with this misinformation, because one of my favorite things in the world is Donald Trump like dancing to a gay anthem. Because he sits there all the time. It's like, welcome to the YMCA.
Okay, now we've got our audience awakened. Let's go ahead and introduce ourselves, at least those of the folks who are here today, because we're missing somebody. My name is Gary Stein. I am the political director for Suncoast Normal.
You hear the crowd loves you. You heard that?
That's right, and our master of public health. To my right, your left, is our deputy director.
Oh.
Our master of business administration, Carlos Jose Angel.
I always press the wrong button.
Have you ever considered just having one button that plays Tito Puente? Just a thought. Just part of the Cuban reference there.
Like, is for me to like assign something to it, and like I hit it right now while I'm speaking, and you can see my voice kind of skips. But I could add something there. I could be like, my name is Cuban Pete. I'm the king of the Ramba beat.
Cheek, cheeky boom, cheek, cheeky boom, cheek, cheeky boom. Never heard that. And now over to my left, your right, coming to us from Melbourne, where you can see all the space lights go off in the air, which must be an awful lot lately, because with Elon Musk, everybody else throwing crap into the space. I guess you see a lot of launches out there by Melbourne coming up from Cape Canaveral and things of that sort. And this guy is actually running to be a state representative for District 33, which includes Melbourne, and that is our good friend Vernon Anderson, Jr.
Hey, Gary.
Vernon, you're a fresh face in the political spectrum here, which is good because you haven't been tainted by, I don't know, all the greed, corruption, everything else that seems to flow with politics. Uh, Give us a little bit of an idea as what your background is and what made you decide to switch gears and get into politics.
Oh my goodness, it's simple. I just got tired of the craziness. It's time to add some sanity back into politics. But no, I spent 22 years in the United States Air Force. Loved every second of it. And I was started out as a crew chief and working on fighter aircraft. And then my last 6 years, I was a program manager, helping to build a lot of different systems throughout the country. I mean, not just the country, but the world. I've been married to my wife for 35 years, and she's here with me today. She probably won't say anything unless I say something crazy. But yeah, I've been married to her for 35 years, and I have 3 kids. My son is the oldest. I have twin daughters. Both of them went to college here. My son graduated college in Texas, out of Texas. That's where I'm originally from. But the
A&M?
question, yeah, sir?
Texas A&M, I guess.
No, University of Texas. Don't say anything about the game last night
I wasn't going to go that way. Yeah, I was.
either.
Go ahead.
No, but yeah, the one reason why I joined is because when they started attacking human rights, freedom, the Republicans started attacking human rights and freedom, stuff like that. They tend to bother me, being that I spent the last 36 years of my life fighting for democracy, and that just really didn't sit well with me. Yes, I am a new face. I'm the change. I'm the person that, like my wife always say, I can't be bullied or bought. And but no, some of the things that I'm focusing on right now, and well, let me start at the beginning. The funny thing about it is when I started down this path of going, jumping into politics, one conversation with my wife and I had was, and I said it to her, I would never become a politician. And that's something that is easy for me to say because I've always been a public servant. And that's what it should be about. It should be about serving the public. However, the things that I want to look at improving is, of course, our educational system. Especially when our Republicans, our supermajority, has started taking a lot of the substance out of our education system, American history, which is American history, just like all history that's created in the United States. But healthcare, insurance, all this is out of control right now here in the state of Florida. And like I said, we need to add some more sanity back into politics. But democracy is at the top of my list, and the reason it's at the top of my list is because without democracy, the others really truly don't matter because we don't have a conversation about it anymore because our Republican friends are going to continue just to try to destroy it, as slowly but surely. So that's why I'm in this race.
It's not easy for a person like you who appears to be an altruist, and it's altruism to narcissism, because it seems like in politics you have to really think a lot of yourself to believe that when you go
Mhm.
out there, people will automatically vote for you. But the fact is, a lot of folks who really care, a lot of people who are the altruists, are the ones who are trying to prove themselves day after day, as opposed to putting out false narratives, which seems to be happening a
Mhm.
lot. That's why you end up getting folks in office who really are not qualified. But you've got a lot of
Mhm.
background and experience in engineering and things of that sort that would make a difference in the way that they see things in Tallahassee, which a lot of times they say follow the science, but what they're saying is follow the money because they have experts coming to them pushing the envelope, as I call it. When they take that big envelope of money and kind of push it their way and say, here's what I want you to say. And that is what seems to be happening. So politicians will change their ideas, their thoughts, their opinions based on who's helping fund their campaign, which is not the way a representative government is supposed to work.
At all. At all. one bit. And a couple of people have come to me already and said, "Well, Vern, you haven't raised that much money," and I haven't. And I don't think the money should be the driver of who wins. However, between my wife and myself, my team, we have been in the public for the last 15 months, talking to people, knocking doors, tabling, doing what we need to ensure that the people can really, truly get out the vote and understand who I am. And the one thing that my campaign manager always say is always be yourself. And I've never changed, and I never will. I will always be that genuine guy, that graduated from college, got his degrees, the guy that spent 20 years in the military leading people, and that guy that just loved helping his community. I will always be that person. And the one thing that you should not do, and politicians should not do, is have that self-interest. Most of them go out there, and it's all about them, and especially on the conservative side, it's all about them. It's not about the people. And the one thing that I always say, when people ask me, I don't see things through the lens of Vernon Anderson. I see things through the lens of the residents of District 33. Because I've spoken and I understand what they're looking for, and I understand the pain they're in, because I'm in that same pain with them. I share.
Well, I hate to cut you off, man. If you've got more, please tell me you got more. But I've got two questions for you, actually.
Yes.
I appreciate you coming on here and speaking the truth and wanting to represent your district properly and the people of your district more so than representing yourself. There's a lot of changes that need to be made in politics, and I think that's very important. Have you read Amendment 3?
Yes, I have.
So for my first question, are you pro or against?
I'm pro. For Amendment 3.
So then my real questions here, I guess I have like 5 questions. First off, right, why is it so important to you that we pass Amendment 3? And second, do you have any criticisms of this amendment?
Why is it important for me? Because this disenfranchised way that the state of Florida is on the African American community because of Amendment 3, not just the African American community, but the young kids as well. If let's take, for example, if say 2 minors get caught with a marijuana stick in their car, one of them is going to have to take the blame. Their life is over with at that point because it's a felony. It makes it more difficult for them to do what they want to do, or just to follow their dreams, because they got a felony on their records. They can't join the military. They can't get a Department of Defense job because you need a clearance. It's just so much with it. But the reason I'm for Amendment 3 is 2 reasons. First and foremost, it eliminates that piece of the felony. And that's what we need. We need to still give them the opportunity, to be successful in life. But second of all, it's a revenue driver as well for the state of Florida. And of course, the state of Florida runs off of taxes. And the more we can bring in, the more efficient, the state of Florida should be able to run. However, I do have a criticism, and just one.
Before you go into that criticism, though, I do want to say that what you said right there, the fact that people are getting arrested right now, there's a lot of criticisms towards this amendment, and and I can't wait to hear what you have to say. But the fact that it ends arrests is just so important. But please go ahead.
No, the only criticism is, do I feel that the people that has been jailed by getting caught with marijuana, things like that. I keep hearing people saying, let's let them all out of jail. No. I think we need to have a conversation about that one. We need to slow down on that a little bit and just handle it case by case, or come up with a process in order to look at these cases and expunge records or whatever we need to do. But just arbitrarily just free everyone that's been jailed for marijuana, either possession or usage, yes. And I just have a couple of concerns about the Amendment 3. Like the driving under the influence. That kind of concerns me a little bit. But like I said, it takes a lot of conversation and a lot of understanding. And what are we going to do about it? Pretty much. So.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned the DUI situation, because one of the things that's been going on in the fight to try to stop Amendment 3 from going through has been some of the talking points that have been coming from the folks against it. And the fact is, in states that actually have adult use cannabis, you actually find the number of driving while under the influence goes actually down. Now,
Yeah.
there are folks who drink and drive. They always
Mm-hmm.
are the DUIs. Those are the ones we have to take control over. It is illegal to drive with an open canister in your car. It's also illegal for you to have a joint that is lit and in your mouth at the time when you're driving too. Now, one the aspect of Amendment 3 that it was kind of iffy, and again, you're limited as to how much you can actually do when you're trying to create a constitutional amendment. You start out with a basis for a law, and the rest of it comes from the legislature, which means when you get into office, you get to fix all the little issues and nooks and crannies that are missing right now. And one thing that's missing is public use. It does not mention public use. And yet we have people coming on TV right now saying, oh, yeah, it creates a situation where I won't be able to smoke anywhere. Well, guess what? Right now, you can't smoke anywhere. It's already the law. It's been the law since we had a medical cannabis, that unless you are in a private property owned by you, essentially, you can't smoke anywhere. Now, if you're in a private property where somebody allows you to, yeah, that's fine. But if you're in a rental situation, your landlord can evict you, and you can be arrested for smoking in your own home.
Yes.
Or anywhere public. You can smoke. You can sit down on a park bench right now and open up a beer, and no one's going to arrest you as long as you're just sitting there drinking. But if you have if you have a joint in your hand, you will be arrested, and that's what we got to change, because even if you just get a misdemeanor on your record, it takes forever to get it expunged. And again, all those things, all those opportunities that are out there are gone for you. So we need to have responsible, and I hate to use that word, but I know Carlos is going to say that means there are people who are irresponsible. There's always irresponsible people. What can you say?
Yeah, so I've got a little bit, all right. I feel like I should keep my mouth shut, because sometimes when I open my mouth in these situations, I make us look a little bad. I'm gonna admit that, because I'm over here. I'm like, more kids should smoke marijuana. there should be more people smoking smoking weed while driving. Like, it's okay to clarify my opinions, right? When you say that you're concerned, Vernon, of people that are driving under the influence of cannabis, okay, that's a valid concern. And you know what? There's a lot of people that you should be concerned about that. But the truth is that, like, it's a class. I think about this question all the time. Would I want to fly on a plane if I knew the pilot had just smoked a joint? Right. My answer to that question is it depends on the pilot. Right. There are some pilots that I would not want to get high before they fly the plane. And there's some pilots that I would actually prefer it. It depends on whether or not that pirate, I almost said pirate, that pilot has some sort of neurodivergent condition or something like that, where, actually the marijuana might actually help them respond a little bit better in the plane. Right. And that happens too in driving. And, like, quite honestly, there's been some studies, and they're controversial, I know, but there's been some studies that show that, people are actually a little bit better driving while they're stoned, and they're horrible at driving while they're drunk. So, I mean, we can get into that later, but I understand your concerns, Vernon. I think they're valid, and, I'm not going to argue with you on that. The whole thing about it smelling like marijuana everywhere is just ridiculous. And I don't know, we've got this public use thing queued up here, Gary. You want me to play it?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So this you want to set it up a little bit?
It depends which one you're going to play.
The no on 3 smoking in public.
The girl?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is a interview done by a supposed expert at one of the television stations here in Florida about why this person wants you to say no on Amendment 3. Let's hear her answer, and then we'll rip it apart.
So I'm gonna say my opinion first. All right, I would
Go ahead.
rather Florida smells more like marijuana because it just smells like piss everywhere. And there we go. We're gonna go ahead and
Constitutional right to smoke pot where I want to. So no, they can't. And that's the problem with the constitutional amendment. You have to be very careful when you're making decisions on voting yes or no on constitutional amendments because they will forever be enshrined as written. You're violating my constitutional right to smoke pot where I want to. So no, they can't. And that's the problem with the constitutional amendment. You have to be very careful when you're making decisions on voting yes or no on constitutional amendments because they will forever be enshrined as written. You're violating my constitutional
yeah,
right
it's
to
on
smoke
loop.
pot where I want
it's
to.
on loop.
So
Yeah.
no, they can't.
Either that or
And
she's so
that's-
high she forgot what you just said. But here's the deal. There is no constitutional right now for you to be able to smoke anywhere. It is federally illegal. Okay? That's the federal constitution. As far as the state constitution is concerned, it specifically prohibits public use already. So you don't have a constitutional right to smoke anywhere. In fact, it's in the Constitution right now that you can't, because which came through in 2016, when it was put through an implementation bill, did say there was no public use. So for her to say no because all of a sudden I won't be able to smoke anywhere, well, you already can't smoke anywhere. So that is not a valid opinion.
Yeah, there's so many lies being told. One that I thought was crazy, the Grady Judd saying that cops would be busier if the amendment.
Of course. And he's like that too, because,
it's going to confuse cops and then they'll be so busy.
I mean, we have policemen who unfortunately are still suffering from PTSD because a lot of them have seen things they cannot unsee. And yet, when it comes to treatment for PTSD, all they offer them right now, and I've had this conversation with Chad Chronister and a couple of other sheriffs, and all they offer them is yoga, acupuncture, and cognitive therapy, none of which have been shown to be proven treatment for PTSD. And so you have folks who actually retire because of their PTSD. Then all of a sudden they're being given jobs as resource officers because of that. There's been more school shootings. And then next thing you know, the guy ends up shooting himself and his grandkids and everybody else because he goes crazy. So we have to take care of our first responders, absolutely. And we happen to have a bill, believe it or not, in Suncoast Normal that we've been trying to push through. Part of it allows public employees to not lose their job or not be prevented from getting a job just because they have a medical card. And the other part is to set up a study which shows if first responders use cannabis when they're off hours and not on call to treat their neurodivergent situations such as PTSD, things of that sort, when they are on shift and they are totally clear of the medicine in their blood at that point in time, they are better cops. They are better firemen. They are better EMS. But people say that there's not enough studies. Well, let's do a study and let's verify it and let's help our first responders. I think that's so important. Now, Vern, again, you came out of the Air Force. You know there are so many people who leave as wounded, mind and body, after they've served their country. And we have to be cognizant of their needs as well.
Absolutely. But you know what? Carlos said something earlier about airline pilots, being under the influence. And you just kind of mentioned a few minutes with first responders and everything, if they can smoke on their off hours, they come back and do a much better job the following day. I tend to can't get on board with that, but because there are controls in place for that. Like for instance, me, I'm in the aerospace and defense industry. I do not want anyone smoking marijuana putting an F-35 fighter together because the measure and the parameters are, and of course the F-35 flies upwards of 1,800 miles per hour. You do not want anything coming loose. Think about that. But for wounded warriors coming back and the first responders, that's seen things like decapitations and things like that, if that's what make them stable or level them out. It has to be some type of. It has to be some type of, I would say, leeway there to help them out. Because first and
Yeah.
foremost, I don't want a fidgety first responder responding to me after I've gotten hit by a car or something, trying to put an IV in me. I want someone with cool hands. And of course, my wife is over there shaking her head. Yeah, because I hate needles. First of all, they get one shot.
Yo, I'm right with you, man. I need my mom to hold my hand whenever I get like a shot or something like that.
You make a lousy junkie. That's the problem. But and am I allowed to make a joke about Boeing here in regards to manufacturing of aircraft while under the influence? Because I have a feeling that's a good part of it. I'm almost glad that they're laying off 17,000 employees. Give those folks a break. They've been under enough pressure to do a bad job at their job.
All right, we need to figure out whether or not those people that worked at Boeing were high, and if they weren't high, we need to do tests on them to make sure that they can put a plane together better high.
Depending on whoever this might drive that study, but I know for a fact that you're not supposed to be doing marijuana or cocaine or anything, working in the industry like this.
And just the fact they would let Boeing create a spacecraft to put people up in space, not knowing if it'll be able to bring them back down again. I think it's just absolutely. I'm just saying, okay, if they can't do it in our atmosphere, don't let them go even beyond that. Don't make the problem worse.
What about like going to space? Like, wouldn't that? Because the astronauts, like I don't know, but like from what I know about like watching Apollo 13, is that they're just kind of sitting there, just taking the force. With like they press the button, the rockets go off, and like everything's kind of automated. You can be high for that, right?
I don't think
I'd want that much G-force and that much explosive
I kind of
force
knew you were
behind
going to
me.
say that, Ed.
I mean, just the thought of sitting in a chair with 1 million pounds of pressure behind you and 20 G's pressing up against you at the same time. I would hate to do that sober.
Wild ride. It would be a wild ride.
I mean, I had cataract surgery on gummies. I had to.
These are questions that our kids are gonna have to like figure out one day. Because like, we're here. It's like, oh, should somebody smoke a joint while they're driving? And like, oh, I don't know. And me. But like, they're gonna be like, well, if we're gonna fly to Mars, you can't be high. It's just funny to think of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about the airline industry, and I think about Howard Hughes, who was, among other things, severely OCD. I mean, but when he built an aircraft, he sat with his finger and went over every single joint to make certain that there was absolutely that was entirely smooth and that there was no drag for every single bolt that was in that plane. Yeah. Because that's the way that was the way his mindset was at. I think that set the standard for the industry going forward. So sometimes being neurodivergent actually helps.
So, Vernon, I know you live now in District 33, but like, are you from there? Were you like, did you grow up there?
No, I did not grow up here. With my wife and I, we moved here back in 2016. But this
Where'd
is
you
not
grow up?
first in Florida. But we moved here in 2016. The company moved me here north of Grumman.
Okay, cool. Where'd you grow up?
In Texas. We grew up in Texas. Both of us in Texas, yes.
I'm just wondering, like, did you have like any experiences with cannabis over there in Texas?
I didn't.
You didn't?
I personally, but of course, friends that smoke marijuana.
Did they ever drive? No, I'm just kidding. No, I like to see if our the people that join us on the show have ever consumed cannabis. Have you ever consumed cannabis at all?
Myself? No.
Yeah. No? All right. I'm just checking. What about your wife? Ask your wife if she smoked weed.
Absolutely.
I think he would know by now. Yeah, he wouldn't have to ask her. After 34 years, I don't think he'd have to ask her at that point in time.
Oh
Eh,
no.
I know that you're probably not interested in consuming anytime soon, but like maybe like one day when you retire and you don't have to worry about driving yourself around or running a district or anything like that. Like, would you ever want to try it?
It's on my bucket list.
It's on your bucket. Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
Well, one of the things I look for in a politician or in a candidate that I want to vote for is the level of empathy. To be able
Mhm.
to look beyond yourself and your own experiences, to be able to feel what your constituents are feeling, because you can't possibly know every single experience that all of your constituents are feeling right now. I mean, it's just not possible. If you have a large immigrant population in your district, and I think it's a fair amount in that area right there, uh, but you're not an immigrant doesn't mean you don't understand where they're coming from. You don't understand why they're fleeing from Buenos Aires or why they're fleeing from other countries where they have dictatorships and other things that make them feel they have to leave their country. And then you come over. Then when you hear these things saying, "Oh yeah, they're coming here to slit your throat in your kitchen," and all the other bullshit.
Mhm.
I mean, it just irks me who don't have empathy, who have an understanding of their own constituency, but they take talking points from people
Mhm.
who think they do but don't. And that's why
And
I'm
I
glad that
truly have an
you're thinking out of the box. Is that what you were saying?
Gary, I truly have an understanding of, and I do have it. I empathize with him because one of the assignments I had in the military was to evacuate 500,000 Kurds from being
Mm.
slaughtered. So
In North Iraq, yeah.
and even the place that we relocated them, the people really didn't want them there, but they empathized with them that they had to be relocated. Here in Florida, immigrants are one of the backbone of our economy, of our work system, of our touch labor. And I don't understand why the Republicans are so down on them. They talk about the Republicans talk about economy. Okay, our out of control costs. Let's if Trump gets in the office and he do what he says he's going to do, like round up all immigrants and send them all out back where they belong. The orange, the apple, the whatever fruit or whatever type of labor that they're currently doing, it's going to drive costs sky high because an American to pick an orange for less than $15 or $16 an hour, that's not going to happen at all.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that because there is an actual there's a federal law in the books. It's called Chapter 14 Special Certificates, and it came from the Fair Labor Law of 1938, which basically says if you have a person who is disabled or a person who's an agricultural worker, you can pay them less than minimum wage. And people are
Yes,
still using those special certificates today, and they need to be
yes.
phased out because
Mhm.
those agricultural workers work their asses off. It's
Yes.
backbreaking work. Have you ever tried catching watermelons? I know that's not the agriculture on your side of the state. It's the other side by Fort Myers and things of that sort. But and Manatee County, these guys they literally toss watermelons into a truck one by one, and your back has to be actually practically broken. That along with the berries
Yes.
and things of that sort. The average American does not want
Mhm.
that work. So when they come over
Mhm.
and take those jobs, they're not taking your job. They're filling a job that we need done. I don't understand why people
We
don't
need
get
that.
that.
I
Mhm.
don't understand how like there are so many immigrants already in this country, and this new Republican hate for immigrants has caused immigrants to hate other immigrants. It's quite strange, like you get a lot from last night SNL. There's like a new cast member, and I think he said in his like weekend update whatever that he was a Lebanese Christian, and he was talking about his father. And I was like, oh my god, I'm not gonna say it, but I was like, oh my gosh, I can relate. But they were like, we're Lebanese, so like that's basically like, Eastern Europe, and we're kind of like French, and we're Christian, so it's not like we're Middle Eastern, and and like the reasoning, like the level of reasoning. I just read this book, Defectors, by Paola Ruiz, who like discussed like the Latin American community and how the right is like taking over the and how like the racism in Latin America and people bringing that over to the United States, and then that the Republican Party could use that to cause them to hate other immigrants. Like, it's incredibly sick how much hate is being used by the Republican Party at this point in time.
Mhm.
I don't know. You guys want to talk about that?
Well,
I don't know.
I'll just go real briefly.
You guys
Go
want to
back
talk about weed at all?
Well, yeah. Well, let's talk about the weed for a moment and how that all ties into that. Because back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, you have the Mexican Revolution over there, and you had the mestizos, or the indigenous folks, against the Euros, who were the colonization people from Spain who came there to take over that area, and they fought. And the drug of choice, if you wish, of the mestizos, of the indigenous folks, was the cannabis, because it was a plant that they could grow. And then there was actually false stuff coming from the press saying that anybody who uses this becomes a violent criminal. And so they were demonizing the indigenous people in their own country, so that these colonists could go over and take over.
Mhm.
I'm just saying. It just
Yeah,
happened.
it was great. Like, you related one of my random rants to cannabis. That was awesome, actually.
Well, when they came to this country with their drug of choice, they were told
Mhm.
that they were taking the jobs away from Americans when they were actually helping to spur the agricultural community in the United States. And so when Harry Anslinger decided to make cannabis illegal, what he used was that anti-immigrant attitude by saying it's these Hispanics coming in here, and these Hindus, spelled with two O's, and these Caribbean folks who are poisoning the blood of this country with their drugs and all this kind of stuff. And that is how cannabis became illegal in the first place. They used that xenophobia that is currently present in this country. And Vernon, you saw it firsthand with the Kurds. I can't tell you how many people were telling me, we don't want those Arabs in our country. They're not Arabs. They're Kurds. The Turks saying we don't want them in our country. They were more Turkish than they were Iraqi, but they didn't want them there. And then they went to Germany, and Germany started calling them Fremdarbeiters, which means foreign workers. And they were saying, we don't want those Arabs in our country. And it came all back again.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the kind of attitude that really it transcribes all levels.
You know what's crazy? I remember there was a committee hearing for the hemp bills that I remember one of the Hillsborough Anti-Drug Alliance ladies went up and spoke. It wasn't
Ellen.
It wasn't Ellen. It was her like sidekick, or like
Laura. Okay,
the president that never talked, or whatever. I don't know, Laura. But like she got up, and we just had this compelling day in that workshop. We had like 40-50 people that showed up to say vote no on these hemp bills, right? It was just like this compelling argument presented by the hemp industry, and we were all in high spirits. And then this woman comes up, and she's against it, and she's like, all these lies are being told to you by these hemp people, and these immigrants are coming in, and they're selling D8 to our kids. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, everybody laughed at her, but it's like making sense why people on the right would like start thinking that way. If like they, and it makes me think, like there's this big resurgence on the right. Like, there's this big push to say that cannabis is no longer a partisan issue, that people on the right want to legalize cannabis. And granted, I think that the difference is how we implement it. Liberals really want a free market. Republicans want, corporations to take over and overcharge patients. But that's not what we're talking about here. But I can see how, like, if they still wanted to demonize cannabis, how if their stance was really no on 3, and Donald Trump wasn't saying we need to vote yes on 3, they would demonize it with the immigrants. There would be like, all these immigrants are coming into this country and getting your daughter high, and then you're going to have an immigrant baby.
And that actually was the one of the talking points in the 1930s, that these immigrants are going to come in here and they're going to impregnate white women, and they're going to brown the country. God forbid, right? After they did it to the Chinese back in the 1800s.
Which should bring us to this point, and I'm not going to get off immigrants yet, but I'm going to make a point here. Why are they trying to get rid of abortion? If all the Arabs are coming in impregnating the women, they would not want to have those babies, wouldn't they? Especially if they're getting their wives and their daughters or nieces and are pregnant, they should not want to have these kids. But yet instead, they want to get rid of abortion. See, all of it doesn't make sense.
They're pro-life, but only to the point of birth. After that, it's everybody else's game, as far as they're concerned. But when they say they want to protect the kids, first off, let me just mention the fact, and Carlos will concur with me on this, Amendment 3 is not going to give kids access to cannabis, okay? It's only for over 21. And Carlos' shop, Chillum, over in 1714 East 7th Street over in Ybor City, you can't be over
Central Ave in St. Pete.
And St. Pete, which luckily did not get flooded out, but almost did. But you can't be under 21 and purchase. However, if you go on the street, you can. And that's the difference. We need to have a regulated, clean product and places where you can buy it, and where they make certain that the kids don't have access to it. And believe it or not, that actually does break down the amount of kids that have access to the medicine.
It really does. And quite honestly, like I'm tired of being blamed for parents being bad parents, because I mean, anything else like alcohol, pharmaceuticals, things like that, they're just expected to be responsible with it and, put it up high where the kids can't. But apparently all these potheads are just leaving hemp gummies all over their babies' cribs.
Yeah, and they pass them out to all the kids at Halloween too.
Right.
I mean, if you just spent $20 on a package of 10 gummies, are you going to give those to the kids? You don't even give them the big bars, of Hershey's chocolate. Are you going to give them your $20 gummies? I don't think so.
Wow.
I mean, it just doesn't make sense. But again, getting back to the babies, the number one cause of infant mortality in this country is unwanted pregnancies. That is the number one base cause of infant mortality. If you want to save the babies, you make certain you have less unwanted pregnancies. Don't take away contraception, which they've been talking about.
Yeah.
Increase use of AVF, of course. As it's AVF, Trump. Okay, I don't know what you thought the initials were. I think you said ABS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, and I think you are actually the king of irritable bowel syndrome. But we're not going to get into that. But the fact is, you have to give people the ability to terminate a pregnancy if it won't be in the best interest of the baby, and that's what it comes down to.
All right, so we
Carlos and Gary. I'm 100% pro-choice. I just want y'all to understand that. But go ahead.
Well, that's the thing. It's like we've been having it's been a good time talking to you, Vernon, and we've been really just like bullshitting and having a good time. But I want to take a moment to I've highlighted your little square and put your caption back up. I want to put some more focus on your platform and your campaign as it comes to cannabis, and get back to business here. How do you feel Amendment 3 should be implemented?
I feel that it should be implemented slowly and methodically. Once it's approved, once it's passed, like I said, we still need to have conversations to make sure it's implemented properly. It's just like alcohol. When prohibition was when alcohol was legalized, it wasn't just legalized. It was legalized, and they can only sell it in saloons and different legalized places. But yet instead they didn't make people responsible for themselves after they drank too much. With cannabis, we need to methodically implement this. Basically, what I'm saying is, if a person goes in to buy say 20 sticks of cannabis from legally, they should be. To me, it shouldn't just be where they can go in and buy 10 cases of cannabis and then just smoke it all up in 1 month. They should be limited at first, at the beginning, and it still need to be studied. We still need to have a lot of studies behind this to see how it's going to affect not just our economy, but our just culture, period. Could you imagine, having a room full of, I would say, I was going to say church-going people that are sitting in church high, off of cannabis because they smoked the joint, and then of course when the pastor started teaching, they just fall asleep because Could you imagine that? Could you imagine having a classroom that are high?
Well, actually, I've had a classroom full of students high. Believe it or not, Vernon, my background is in cannabis education, and I used to travel the state of Florida and hold workshops on how to grow marijuana. So actually,
learning anything.
What happened?
Now, Carlos, by the way, has a degree in theology, which is funny because he's an atheist. But I guess once you learn everything there is to know, there's no reason to be religious anymore, right? But in Genesis, when they're talking about how the high priest has to be prepared to go into the tabernacle and to speak to God, they had to anoint him with the anointing oil. And in the recipe for the anointing oil was cannabis. And so the guy was literally doused in cannabis oil before he walked in because that would open his mind to be able to speak to God. That said, if you're not the high priest, I guess you're out of luck as far as the Bible was concerned. But that is where it's mentioned.
Right. Absolutely.
No, and I would like for you to do a little research on a church out in Colorado called the Church of Cannabis.
Only in Colorado.
There's actually a mushroom church out in Oakland, California, by the way. But what do you call it? What about this, right? All right, there's quite a bit of criticism about this amendment, especially coming from the hemp industry. A lot of our followers, are very much informed on this criticism, but for the past couple of years, truly, you've had funded certain legislators to put forward a bill that would make hemp illegal in this state. And we fought it. 1 year we came to a compromise. The second year it passed, but DeSantis decided to veto it, and that veto ended up causing all this controversy because now there's a lot of like Republican hemp store owners that are like, "Oh, DeSantis is on my side." I just can't say that with a funny, straight face. There's a lot of hemp store owners. DeSantis is on my side. Vote no on 3. Cannabis is already legal in this state. The hemp industry is really the cannabis industry, right? And all you're going to do by voting yes on 3 is just make hemp illegal and hand over the cannabis industry to the monopoly that currently controls the medicine industry. Do you have a response to that at all?
Like I said, we still have, we're babies at this right now, especially the public. But we still have a lot of conversations. But I'm going to tell you this one thing. The more I speak to people that are well versed on cannabis, and it's not just its effects, but just the legalization of it, the usage of it, it makes me more aware of what I need to speak about. When I go into
we appreciate you being open. One of the things that we do as a 501c4, as a Suncoast Normal, is to help educate the politicians who are part of representative government, because you can't possibly get all the information unless you're already heavily into the industry, which not everybody is, especially when we're getting into politics. So we're here available for you for any of the information you might need to help move forward and to work on it, because we've got bills that try to fix so many things that a lot of people are not aware of. Like, for instance, if you are in a home where mother or the father are using cannabis for their PTSD or for their Crohn's disease or for their cancer or whatever, and Child Protective Services comes into the home for whatever reason, and the only thing they can find is the fact that somebody has a medical cannabis license, they can petition the Department of Children and Families to remove the kids from that home. And we actually have a bill that says if the only thing you can find is the fact that someone's using cannabis medically or medicinally, you can't petition the government to take the kids away, because that doesn't make any sense. A child thrown into foster care is in far more danger than having a parent who's chill and dealing with their PTSD or whatever else. So those are the kind of bills that we have created to move forward. And we need legislators to work with us to make those things happen. During the supermajority that we've had for the last few years, they've gone nowhere. But they're out there, and we've developed new ones. We even developed a new one for the Second Amendment, saying that cannabis use should not be the reason why you can't have a concealed weapon permit and things of that sort. Although I got to tell you, there are some idiots out there who don't know how to handle their firearms. There was a guy who was last week, 2 weeks ago, who accidentally killed his girlfriend because it was loaded while he was cleaning his firearm. Now, who the hell doesn't take the ammunition out before they start cleaning it? You have to have a clear pipe, right? You have to have the first thing you do when you're cleaning your firearm is make certain there's no ammunition in it. This idiot was not activated, was not educated.
To be clear with you, Vernon, I don't think you should operate a firearm while high.
Actually, I think more likely if you're high, you're not going to want to.
Yeah, there's a good chance you'll put it down. Pick up a bag of onions.
Irresponsible.
Unless you're pheasant shooting or when you're out with Dick Cheney, people on your team.
I don't want to take away Gary, pitching that we've got bills and that we're working on and things like that. But I want to go back to something Gary just touched on, and just something that kind of, go ahead, Vernon. I'm sorry.
No, just really quick. Gary, thanks for the offer on the educational piece. I'm going to put you guys in my speed dial. I have Jody as well.
Yeah, she's in Melbourne.
I have any questions about Canada. Hey, Jody, what's going on? Do I need to be brought up to speed on this? Please educate me. But I appreciate that.
It's a good person to educate you, man. I'm not even going to lie. Jody's very educated on the subject. But, and that's what I wanted to talk about, as a matter of fact, is that we're here to educate. Gary mentioned what our organization is all about. And Vernon, I'm going to just let you know I'm releasing some frustrations from our audience. But we are a 501c4. We are here to be a political organization. We are here to influence politics. We are here to tell you how to approach politics when it comes to cannabis. And if you are upset that we tell you to vote Democrat because that's better for cannabis, then I'm sorry, but you can stop fucking listening and fuck off. We don't want your membership. We don't want you to view. We don't want you to, because here's the whole point, Vernon. Gary Stein here, and our executive director Chris Cano put together a voter guide, and I'll flash it up here a little bit. And you can see here it's very comprehensive. Hopefully we got your district on there.
Yes,
yeah, there you go. We have you on there, so we
second column, first one down. There you
go. But these guys put in a lot of hard work. They reach out to politicians. They have them fill out questionnaires, right? They invite them to be on the podcast. We interview them on the podcast in front of our audience, right? We ask them questions. We take our expertise. We've been doing this for over all of the people on this board, over 10 years. Activism, cannabis industry, nonstop, passionate about legalization of cannabis, right? And we need to stop making this a partisan issue. I mean, if anything, that proves that it is absolutely a partisan issue. Right. You might vote yes on 3, but if you're going to vote for somebody that's not going to implement it with your freedom in mind, right, you're fucking up. I'm sorry. So you can fuck off. If you're going to complain about Gary and Cano, like, they literally complained to our national organization, and the national organization looked at the situation and was like, they're a 501c4. of course Donald Trump is going to be worse for cannabis than Kamala.
I mean, we also included looking at everybody's voting records and what bills they sponsored, what bills they did not sponsor, what bills they voted down, what bills they voted up, and
Which
all
is
this came
something
into
that
the
Republicans never do.
Yeah.
Well, but the thing is, there's a lot of Republicans that I know who would vote for it if leadership would let them. And that a lot of times is the issue with Tallahassee, that they do have a very military stance in the GOP side of the House, and that is leadership driven. They tell everybody, be a good soldier, vote for this, do exactly what you're supposed to do, and don't question us. But with all due respect, the military, the legislature is not the military. It's more like God's will, and we all have free will. They should be able to represent your constituents and not just the leadership of your party.
Right. I agree 100. Yes.
But we do have Republicans on our endorsement list. We do have Libertarians on our Republican list. We even have one write-in candidate because in a district not too far up north from you is Kim Daniels, a Democrat, who spews this anti-Semitic bullshit, saying that stop talking about the Holocaust because the Jews own everything. Well, damn! I wish I had known that. I would have had a better paycheck last month.
Yeah, you sure.
And she also said that thank God for slavery, but we're not going to get into that one because I don't think she should get any more air than she's already gotten.
Right.
So we didn't endorse her. We endorsed the write-in candidate who is in favor of the things we're talking about and who gets it and understands it. And that's why we put those people out there. And if you don't like who we endorsed, take a better look at your. That's all, Dan.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, we're not going to deal with that.
Go ahead.
What happened? Go.
Now, the one thing that I wanted to say is, even though we passed Amendment 3, we're going to pass Amendment 3, we still need people like me in Tallahassee to help execute the Amendment 3. You know, because if we still have that supermajority, they're going to put all kind of garbage, conditions and into this and try to derail it and make people not want it, and of course put out more of those misleading commercials about Amendment 3. It's gonna be. We have to break that supermajority in order to make sure that it's implemented properly. We need that.
Well,
we need those.
Speaking of misleading commercials, I have one right here.
Unlike alcohol, there's no easy way for law enforcement to detect how high you are when driving. A DUI can more than double your car insurance, and driving high affects more than just you. DUI crashes increase in states with legalized marijuana, putting everyone at risk. Don't drive high. It can raise your premiums or end your life.
Okay, just so you know, I don't see anything in my last application for auto insurance where it asks you how often do you get high while driving. It doesn't actually say it in there. So there's a lot of issues in regards to that commercial. In regards to, again, DUIs go down in areas that have greater access to cannabis because they'd rather do that than alcohol.
That is something I want. I want to bring up a very important point about you, Vernon. From the little impression that I got from you. You can tell that you've never smoked weed. It's not a cannabis stick, by the way. It's a cannabis joint.
It could be a military term. I don't know.
But you can tell. But here's the thing: is that you're educated, right? Granted, you're a little concerned about people driving DUI with cannabis, and you know what? Some of that concern is actually very valid. And I'll agree with you a little bit on that. But you understand that we need to end these arrests. You understand that we need to implement this carefully and constructively. You understand that we need to block out this cannabis monopoly. And you understand the racisms behind prohibition and why it continues to be prohibited. And you understand the dangers of Republicans implementing this industry.
Yes.
So kudos to you, man. I'm happy that we endorsed you. And it's been a great conversation. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you all
Now,
for having me. It's been amazing.
you need money for your campaign. How do people get access to help you with that endeavor in these last few weeks? However much longer you can actually still donate.
Yeah, just go to my website at Anderson Campaign 2024. Hit the donate button. It'll take you straight to Act Blue.
Cool.
And then,
if you
of
need
course,
some help,
go ahead.
and if you need some boots on the ground, call Jody. She's local. You hear, Jody? It's on you.
So I don't know, Gary. Kano's not in today, so I don't know. Do you have any news that you want to share with anybody?
Just again, the fact that we do have here in the state of Florida a large amount of money being poured into blocking Amendment 3, just as there's a lot of money trying to block Amendment 4. It's not unusual for the folks in Tallahassee to try to knock down citizen initiatives. They do it all the time. When it came to giving felons their votes back after they served their time, they made that nearly impossible by saying you had to pay back all the money you owed to the state for your incarceration. And by the way, incarceration does cost, and they do ask for prisoners once they leave to pay it back.
Yeah.
It ain't happening.
That's why it's so important that that we implement this. The fact that DeSantis is literally using taxpayers' money. People in Florida who are cannabis patients, when you pay taxes, you're funding No on 3 commercials. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Senator Pizzo over in Miami is a person who is actually suing the state for using public funds to try to knock down a citizen initiative, and we are going to have him on November the 3rd. So we're looking forward to having him respond.
That commercial we just saw was funded by taxpayer money.
Right.
It wasn't funded by some corporate shill that's funding DeSantis campaign or something like that. It is funded by your money, Florida. Thank you. Ridiculous. So let's get a little bit more lighthearted here. Let's talk about having fun later in the next month. We announced we were having our Halloween costume contest a couple of shows ago. We didn't really mention it last time, and it's because it was kind of in a bit of a hiatus. So we're going to have a Halloween costume contest in the middle of November. There you go. It's going to be on November 16th now at 8 p.m. There's going to be music, live entertainment. There's going to be, of course, a costume contest. So wear your Halloween costume. You could win a cash prize. I'd tell you, I'm going to bring a Puffco just to, sweeten up that cash prize deal. So if you're into Puffcos, you could possibly win one. And one of the coolest things we're doing this year is we're doing live body painting. We did it at the first one, and we're bringing it back. All proceeds go to legalized cannabis, so please support us. And Gary, what are your costumes going to be?
Well, I haven't decided yet, but I am grateful that you're doing live body painting now, because the cadaver painting thing, it didn't go over very well.
No, it's not. We never painted dead people. I just want to clarify, right? Live body painting just means it's happening there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't certain exactly where you were going with that.
There's no dead body painting.
I think there's also a constitutional amendment against that. I'm not necessarily certain.
Yeah,
something having to do with alteration of a corpse, but we're not going to get into that right now.
You're not allowed to paint dead bodies or get high with them.
But again, we're looking forward to getting a fresh new faces into the legislature this next session, so telling them to do everything that they should do, whether they want to represent their public or not. We're hoping that, Vernon, you are in there to help make this thing happen. We'll offer you all the bills you need to help go forward, and of course any education that you need. We're more than happy to do that, because there's a lot of issues that have to be resolved, including making certain that that folks have a chance to have access to being in the business as well. I mean, Carlos was lucky to be able to set up Chillum, now with 2 stores, doing a fantastic job. But the average person in minority status has practically no way of getting into the business right now. With vertical integration the way it stands right now, you have to have $50 million in your pocket. And the average mom and pop does not have $50 million to start a business. And they may be giving out licenses, but if that license costs you $50 million to get started, it ain't going to happen. And we don't have any minority licenses. I'm sorry, Cookies, but Burner, yeah, your dad was Mexican. That does not make you a minority. You are a millionaire, rap performer. It doesn't really fit the mold, okay?
About it, I think Cookies is licensing to another company, so I don't even think Burner owns the company that Cookies out here.
Yeah, and the one license that they promised us that was supposedly given to a person who was a black farmer who happened to be 90 years old at the time that he was putting in his application, passed away before they actually did it. So they gave it to the next person, and the next person is already ready to sell his license, even though he hasn't even cultivated or anything. So once again, no minority licenses. Don't fall for that line. We need to get it fixed. We need to get it fixed in the legislature. Vote yes on Amendment 3. It gives us a basis to be able to work on. Without that, we won't be able to put in bills that will allow home grow or all the other things that you want, including making certain we have social equity programs in place to make certain that people have access and also can get equity from the industry. So, Vernon, we're looking forward to you joining us in this fight. Any final words you want to say before we close it out for today?
No, I just want to say, we just need to make sure that all Democrats get out to vote for this. Not only vote for this, vote for me as well. That way, we can get me in the office and, help move this fight forward. But
now, today is supposed to be, today is Sunday. If we were a normal state, this would be a Souls to the Polls day. But we don't even have early voting until, the 26th? Approximately a week and a half before the actual election?
Yes. It's the 21st.
Not a lot of leeway there.
Yes.
And I don't know why they would ever stop that,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems like the Democrats are the party of get out the vote and the Republicans are suppress the vote. I'm just saying it just looks that way. Tell me I'm wrong.
Okay.
And with that, we're looking forward. We actually have a special show tomorrow morning. Normally, we do not do these things on Sundays, but the
should have got his thing ready.
Yeah, we have Daryl Parks is coming on tomorrow. Daryl Parks is running for Senate District 3, which is a district the size of Massachusetts. It literally covers the entire top of the state, including Tallahassee. The current guy is a Philadelphia Eagle by the name of Corey Simon, who last time in the Senate said that he once went out to get, I guess it was Delta 8 for lack of sleep. And then he had a psychotic anxiety attack and ended up in the hospital. But first off, obviously you didn't know what the hell you were smoking.
That was
because there are certain cultivars for sleep, and there are certain cultivars to keep you awake. You don't drink a cup of coffee to help you go to sleep.
He said that the problem. I was in the room. All right. He said that the problem is that he took one gummy. The person that sold it to him didn't really educate him on it. The person that sold it to him just said start slow. So he took one gummy, right, and ended up having to go to the hospital, have his stomach pumped. I mean, come on, dude. Come on.
And looking at the dude, he has an ample stomach. He's a big guy. He's a football player. What can I say?
I don't want to take away from, there are people that, take too much and they get scared, and, you're scared. Fine. But it's just a ridiculous notion that he had his stomach pumped for one hemp edible. Like, pisses me off, man. So I'll tell you right now, vote for Daryl Parks. He's going to be on the show tomorrow, but, I could already tell I like him better.
Absolutely. And he's a lawyer who's done a lot of important work. And we'll get into that tomorrow. He's coming on early because of the fact that he's got to get his gut out the vote campaign for all of his constituency, which is massive, as I've said before. covering a huge swath of Florida. So we were giving it. We were lucky to get him for that period of time, and that is a flippable district, guys. So
Yeah, flip all
and he
those.
gets it, but you'll get into that tomorrow. Check us tomorrow at 9:00 a.m. program note, and you'll see him. Of course, we're going to replay it again next Sunday. So to make sure we get that word out there. But if you want to see it live, want to get a chance to comment live,